You're listening to Two Beers Until Phronesis, a philosophy podcast by students and graduates. Whether you've never heard of philosophy or have a philosophy PhD, we hope you enjoy these conversations as we discuss some of life's big questions over a few beers. Enjoy! So I wanted to talk about something I wrote an essay on, and I did a little talk at the Humanities Research Conference for it, and it's on probably one of the more academically underappreciated fields in religion, which is UFO movements and cults and religions that kind of come from looking at unidentified flying objects. Do you guys know any examples?
Yeah, we know. I think I know a couple because I've looked at the. I read the essay. Go to Two Beers Until Phronesis, which I thought was spelled with an F, but it's not. It's a PH. Knowledge.
No. Yeah. Well, I mean, probably I suppose one of the biggest ones would be. I mean, if you don't, if you're counting Scientology, that one, but then you've got like Radianism and stuff like that, which is considered probably the biggest. Mm-hmm. And ones that people, we were watching earlier the Heaven's Gate interviews and the Heaven's Gate weirdness that went on there, and I think a lot of people are sort of familiar with that just for the sort of infamy that movement sort of had.
Usually they have a certain element of notoriety about them. People, they're fringe groups there, and I think they're kind of blown out of proportion because they're not that common. But Radianism's a little bit different because Radianism is still going. It wasn't just like a 30 people suicide cult. Radianism is this big religion centered around UFOs. And of course Scientology is the biggest, but Scientology is kind of exempt categorically from the others because they're probably the only UFO religion to officially deny that they believe in UFOs.
Right. So they don't acknowledge that.
Yeah, there's Xenus and Thetans and stuff. I mean, I think it's best if we save Scientology till later, but I think they're a little bit different when we're talking about UFO movements because most of these movements are just really overtly into the whole idea of flying saucers and lasers and spaceships and all that crap.
And what other sort of cults are relatively well known? So there was Athelians. Was the one with it's like George King, 1955 or something? I remember just reading something about that. Subgenius.
Cult of the Subgenius. Yeah. And there's Order Fiat Lux. And there's all kinds of weird things. It's very hard to research on this kind of stuff. That was one of the major things I found. There's no credible information anywhere. So I had to trawl through 90s websites, where they got little graphics and shit.
Rotating alien head.
Enter, beam up here, and people discovered animations and shit. So it's
awesome,
it's hilarious.
How do you think most of these things start?
So that obviously, when we're talking about UFO movements, we have to be a little bit more clear. First of all, what we're saying. So obviously, people saw things in the sky before the sort of 20th century, but generally they were signals or signs. They weren't vessels.
No.
They started to become vessels probably around World War One-ish, and then it was more it's the enemy. It's a military weapon. And it wasn't until later, when science fiction writing really became a thing, that people started to interpret these things. I mean, there are a few counterexamples to that. There are accounts of, not very good accounts, but there are accounts of sort of angels stepping out of spheres of light and things. But
it's sort of vague enough to be we can now interpret that as UFOs from our sort of modern perspective, can't we?
Yeah, that's the thing. I think we're reading back a bit too much on that kind of stuff. It really starts as its own phenomenon around about the 1940s, and then later on with that through the saucer craze in the 50s and 60s, I guess, and then you have the influence of counterculture and spirituality and stuff like that.
Would you say that the movements that sort of started a lot more in the 50s and 60s were as a consequence of film, particularly, sort of horror movies?
There's a massive overlap with popular fiction, War of the Worlds and that kind of stuff. I don't know. Yeah, the imagery.
Was right at the end of that was 1897, I think. War of the Worlds.
Quite
a lot earlier.
Yeah, not the H.G. Wells, but the film.
Oh yeah, the radio plays and things.
Yeah, it gave that imagery to it. The whole idea of a flying saucer, So I wrote it was an identifiable social movement, almost exclusively Western, which to a notable degree is concerned with the existence of unidentified flying objects. And I think this is probably the most important part when we're talking about religion, their implications on mankind.
Yeah.
They always, with these UFO movements, this is what separates a UFO movement from someone just saying, I saw a saucer. It's like, you've got a group which kind of unanimously agrees that these beings have an agenda with us.
It's like a purpose, and it's like, it's like, I remember we were talking about that in the animals, it's like that we have a place. It's like the same sort of idea of like finding a place. And then we have a part to play in like some grand egg-shaped man's scheme of the world.
Yeah, what's the word for like religions that I can't remember the word now. It's begins with M, and it's like for religions that have like prophesied some big change that will happen or some doomsday thing that will happen. That characterises it like when you look at stuff like cargo cult religions and things in Micronesia and those sort of things.
Eschatology? Are we thinking of end times?
Well, I'll look it up, but it's sort of like a lot of UFO religions kind of have these characteristics of.
Do you mean like apocalyptic, or do you mean?
Yeah, it can be apocalyptic. It's just they're characterised by a sudden like massive social change that will bring about either an apocalypse or a great social change that will completely alter.
Yeah, I mean that's true of many religions. Yeah,
just particularly like common in very colonialised, very small societies that are very behind on technology from the Western world, because they would sort of idolise, like in the cargo cult things, they would idolise, sort of Western things that they saw and have these like weird systems that built around seeing technology they didn't understand and I'll look it up. So.
Yeah, so I said about Melanesian cargo cults. Have you seen these?
I haven't. It's like we dropped like a little line. I was like, first of all, I was like, what are they? And then you sort of explained a little bit, but
people, just tribes that basically worship planes. They think they're vessels piloted by higher beings.
Yeah, but it's like, why wouldn't they?
Exactly.
It's like one of those things that's like
millenarianism.
Millenarianism. That's what it's called.
Right. Okay. Yeah, but
we got that. There's some graduate student listening to this just going fucking millenarianism or whatever it is.
New word of the day.
Legionnaire's disease.
But I think they during World War II it might have been a tribe saw a runway built.
Yeah.
They didn't really interact with the pilots. I think they were RAF pilots, and I think they were using like a bit of the Amazon to refuel and.
Coming down, you've got all your masks.
Attack Germans. Yeah. So basically, they observed this. Then the RAF left, and they went down and recreated what they'd seen using twigs and everything. So they even had like a control tower and planes.
So cool.
Just out of twigs.
Sort of mock-up airport.
So they were trying to copy. They were seeing something that's like a. And they were doing like a veneration, like building themselves.
I mean, there's lots of still lots of cultures in Micronesia. Well, I mean, they still have like interesting little. I know around Guam, some of the smaller islands around Guam in Micronesia, there's still like a tradition every Christmas Day of the US military actually doing like dropping packages and stuff into like some of these little island areas that are called Operation Christmas Drop or something.
That's awesome.
And so you have like these interesting little cultures that are almost formed around a lot of what happened during World War II, when you had, especially in the sort of Pacific, in Micronesia, Polynesia, and these sort of areas, where there were lots of like resupplying going on for troops in those areas that were actually deployed from the US and also Japanese troops as well.
Yeah.
And sort of before a lot of those relationships really deteriorated with the locals, there would be this interesting sort of thing going on where there would be lots of Western troops sort of moving through and being resupplied, and some of the Western troops would interact with the locals and they would use the locals as guides and give them Western stuff and that sort of thing, and that's a lot of how like some of these things sort of developed in the first place, and that's where you started to see a massive increase in the number of cargo cults. It was around sort of the 1940s, but there are examples even before that. There's quite funny. I think one. I don't think it is gone, but it is. Yeah, it's like Melanesia. There was like a sort of religion or a cargo cult. It's called like Tom Ford or something. It's called like the religion of Tom Ford. They worship like it was just some random American dude who was a soldier or something. And I think it's Joe Navy as well. It's like another. It's just like they have this spiritual figure called like Joe Navy or something. Where it's like clearly.
You know the tribe that worship Prince Philip.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. And didn't he go and visit them? I swear he visited them.
I think he might have visited them a couple of times.
Such a narcissist.
They love that.
Yeah. You would, wouldn't you? I don't know. Yeah, he's like a god in there.
Do you know where
To be
that
fair,
was?
Prince Philip's basic god in my eyes. Actually,
I don't know where it was.
Can't do no wrong. I actually have quite a lot of love for him.
And I don't know where it was, but I know it was on the Moaning of Life, I think, or Idiot Abroad, one of them. The car building things.
So they visit that place.
Yeah, he goes.
Oh, right,
he goes there, and
Do they have just like shrines to Prince Philip?
yeah, and obviously Carl's looking at it, and he's like, better than most religions because they can actually have a chat with their god. And he's like, yeah, you're not wrong. To an extent.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, the agenda is like a massively important aspect to this. So it ranges from kind of really scientific to the really religious. Obviously, we were watching the Heaven's Gate stuff, and they were talking. I don't know. They were talking about extraterrestrials, and then they were swapping that out for language about the kingdom of heaven. And it's like this really weird syncretic mash of.
They've borrowed things. They've taken ideas
Yeah.
from like Christianity or Judaism and gone.
And even Star Trek in their lexicon, they've got they use words like "beam me up," and it's like just a strange mixture of different things. And
Spirituality and sci-fi.
yeah. So looking at like more solid examples, so we'll start with like the most overtly religious of all of these, Radianism. So you've looked at Radianism, have you?
All I know, because I literally went on the Wikipedia as preparation. I looked at Wikipedia. I was like, "What's the biggest ones?" Okay, we got like Radianism. That just seemed. All I know about it is it's quote the biggest known UFO religion. That's pretty much as far as my understanding of Radianism goes. So.
Yeah, it came from a guy called Rael. I think he's Dutch or French, and he's got a little ponytail.
Yeah.
And dresses in white, and he's.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
He basically.
Apparently it's quite safe though. It's like one of the ones where they're more like focused on living a good life. And
Yeah,
it's
so-
got this weird UFO thing
Yeah,
going on as well.
can it have good? Can it be like? Can the outcomes be good? Despite the fact you're worshipping something a little bit kooky.
I think that most of the kooky shit, in that sense, that comes from the kind of '60s mentality or the kind of neo-Wiccan stuff and the Little Green Men stuff. I think most of it's pretty safe. And that was one of the main things I found. On balance, most of these religions and movements are salvific. Like they're all to do with positive stuff and affirming human behaviour. I mean, Radianism is pretty much the best example of that because there's pretty much. So, if I remember correctly, these aliens that we're supposed to sort of worship are our ancestors or creators.
Oh yes, it was renegade scientists.
Yeah.
That's right, renegade scientists. Was that? Yeah,
Like
that is Radianism.
genetic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Renegade scientists that created humanity.
One of which was called Yahweh. So, like the Jewish
Yeah.
god.
That's
So,
pretty cool.
so all of our gods.
So they're already drawing on,
Mm.
oh yeah, well this was also referenced in this.
See, this is what I mean by overtly religious. So basically,
Yeah.
all of our gods are explained as being these beings.
Yeah.
And since they created us, we have to be worthy of our inheritance. So we've inherited this world. It's like, it's just a different creation myth, and then the morality around that is kind of like, don't fight each other and have wars. And there's no the sexual connotations of religion. So there's no like, sex is all good. Like thumbs up, that's fine. That gets a pass. But like war doesn't. So the only things they really deny about our behaviour are the really destructive shit. Everything else is affirmed. So I mean, it's quite nice, really. It's pretty harmless.
Is this Has this become like a...
Yes, John, a UFO religion, yeah.
Yeah, Bev's just going to hand out some fucking pamphlets. We're going to have to join.
It's not worshipping Zil.
Still a bit sceptical of any religion is based off God created this and therefore you have to be worthy of whatever.
Exactly.
That just feels a bit...
The source of authority is like, well, what makes them in charge? Like, they create us, fine. Like, we can create life whenever we like. We can clone something, it doesn't make us in charge of it.
Well, we've already made synthetic life as well. We've made synthetic cells
If
already.
to buy into something, you have to adhere to these kind of arbitrary rules. That to me is like a major red flag for any kind of...
Well, that's the thing. It's not... This religion isn't... I mean, they're not going around forcing anyone to do anything. So it's fairly benign, I think. And so are the Elohim, the aliens that they worship. They're not here to attack us or anything.
But that is until you get to like Heaven's Gate and Scientology, I guess.
Yeah.
As far as...
Well, I mean, there is a little bit of... So they've pressured governments to I mean, no one's ever funded it or going to fund it, but they want to build, I think it's like 7 embassies to welcome the Elohim to our planet. And that's going to be you need to go and see these videos online. It's like 90s little graphics videos of like, it's like clip art.
Of what the Elohim look like.
No, of what the embassies are going to look like. You lay out, it's like, there's going to be a cafe here, and it's what they send to like all the governments. It's like,
this is legit just a scam.
We selected you to build our airport, and we can trade and everything, and it's going to be a utopia once they come, because they'll give us everything we ever need, and we'll give them friendship.
But they can only come if you build a special building with a cafe in it. Despite the fact that they're like genius scientists who created Earth on a whim, it's like we have to build them a special reception area, or else they won't land.
One of the other
really parched when we get here.
Yeah, I want to see the guy who, the town planning guy who got that, like, who had to sit through their brief. He would just be like going absolutely mental.
One of the other positive ones I've just seen on my list: the Universal Industrial Church of the New World Comforter.
What is that?
Comforter.
Oh, the UICNWC, yeah.
So yeah, the pessimistic ones you just mentioned, like the Heaven's Gate stuff. So yeah, you still have that agenda, but then they're coming down to tell us that there's a dualism usually as well. So not only are they coming down to tell us that certain behaviours are wrong, but that our bodies aren't really ourselves, and that ourselves are somewhere else. Like
the consciousness will transform into some other plane of existence, or some alien race or body or something. I mean, that's I hate to keep bringing up Scientology prematurely, but again,
we're getting there.
It's hard not to at this point.
Just cranking up the handle, ready to spit fire.
This is like one of these things where we sort of like, we feel like we have to give the other ones a mention before we just start talking about volcanoes.
Right, yeah, because Scientology is such a crazy topic. But unfortunately, it sort of dominates the conversation when you talk about prominent UFO religions. And I know virtually nothing about.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That they do lack a kind of prominence. I mean, they have a big social impact, especially the suicidal cults and things. But yeah, I mean, really, in terms of religions that overtly mention UFOs, there aren't really that many. The guy that I got a lot of this from, he's one of the people putting serious work into this stuff. Had a few Skype kind of lectures from him. I think his name's Eric Ostling or something, and he's got like...
His name's Yahweh.
He looks like he should be he's Swedish, he looks like he should be in a metal band. But, like, apart from him, there's like... I don't know, I kind of want to draw a parallel with philosophers that don't want to talk about video games because they don't think it's... I think it's
not worthy of intellectual...
time. But I think it's such an interesting phenomenon. As long as you approach it with the right framing, I think no subject is really...
it's culturally significant, these things, and they do have an important impact on how modern faith is evolved and goes down all these really strange avenues. And also, I think it reveals other interesting parts about how all these religions are kind of tied together and what are the fundamental constituents of what is causing people to develop these sort of systems of faith and belief. And
with Heaven's Gate, obviously that was a massive thing where they all committed suicide. I think one of the guys did. Was it Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles?
Bonnie Nettles, yeah.
Bonnie Nettles died before, but we just watched the induction tape.
How about Riders In, viewers?
Well, we watched half of the first part of the induction tape, and it's the eye contact, the sort of charisma and the urgency.
That's another thing in Scientology. They do that thing called like eyes, like staring.
Oh, where they stare at you for as long as
like
possible.
15 minutes, and you just sit there and you just lock eyes with someone, and it gets you over like normal human social conditioning.
Well, I remember Sam Harris
cool.
mentioned it. He would often like stare people in the eyes like he was going to make love to them. He said
eye gazing. They do it in sort of Buddhism, which is again is sort of taking like ideas from other religions, like that's kind of effective. And then it's like with things you're sort of seeing the birth of a religion, like something like Heaven's Gate. So they've got a lot of source material to sort of choose from. I imagine other religions sort of did this where they looked at other cults and other things they were looking at, and then sort of in the same way that Christianity adopts loads of like pagan ideas and loads of ideas that are sort of happening at the same time, and loads of Judeo-Christian ideas.
Yeah, so we had this conversation in the pub yesterday about what constitutes a legitimate religion as opposed to... I mean, we're throwing up a lot of words here. We're throwing up like movement, cult, and religion.
Gotta get those definitions down.
Yeah.
I think it's understandable by what we're saying, though, isn't it? So
Yeah.
we all know what we're saying.
Yeah, we know what we're saying, but I do want to move on to it maybe because
I suppose if we're trying to start to unpack what is the difference between a religion and a cult, then yes, we need to start.
If only there were seven easy steps to identify a
well,
religion.
Oh.
so Ninian Smart he came up with the 7 dimensions of religion. I'm going to read them out. So rituals, narrative and mythic, experiential and emotional, social and institutional, ethical and legal, doctrinal and philosophical, and material. So all those elements basically make up what a religion
Can you
is.
break down?
I'll break down a few of them because they are So rituals are fine. We're all pretty much okay with that.
Okay, some form of regular practice that sort of.
It forms and orders of ceremonies, private or public, often regarded as revealed. Narrative and mythic. So obviously stories that explain who we are and why we like it. Experiential and emotional. Dread, guilt, awe, mystery, inner peace, bliss. Yeah, okay. So the feeling you get from things like the numinous, I guess, would come under that as well, like the feeling of being small and of witnessing something majestic in creation. Social and institutional. So being part of a community, shared ideas, attitudes, okay. Ethical and legal. Rules about human behaviour, okay. Revealed from a supernatural realm. So I mean all that's really understandable, but then a lot of those you could pretty much apply to any club.
Yeah.
Especially if you tweak a couple of words. And I think
So there's take for example, like the local bowls club, let's say.
Yeah.
So,
You past tradition about wins, who came from where.
Yeah,
The lineage and history of the club, the ritual of meeting up every week. What's the second one?
narrative and mythic. So yeah, you can just have a story, a legacy about the founder of the bowls club and its place in the community.
And also you're creating your own narrative and mythic by sort of competing.
Experiential and emotional. I mean, a game is euphoric. That is
often said about bowls. It's euphoric. You see people rolling on the floor, their eyes crossed.
Yeah, they're going to have
fucking bowls club.
Yeah, so they're going to have all these aspects. Really, the only thing that I think separates it is the metaphysical. There's no divine or anything, but then
I think you can sort of say maybe it's something like football. You can almost say like luck. And like
then I think there is a metaphysical element.
There is like they don't talk about it like there's like a god or whatever, but it's like something like skill, something like luck, or something like there's like always like it's our time to do this. It's now, and it's like sort of
a degree of fate.
It's a fate. Yeah. There's like fate coming, which is almost like a degree of like metaphysical.
And I think we apply that to something like something a lot more negative, like a regime or something. Saying there's no metaphysics in that,
like Nazism.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say Nazism because
you knew you
it's that rule, isn't it?
It's whoever ventures the Nazis loses.
It's Poe's law.
But it's so easy because we can go like,
now we've said Nazis, right? So they saying there's no
metaphysics. We fucking know. It's like you can do it with cold pots because we're like, so historically ignorant. I don't actually know what the fuck he did.
But when he says that I don't know, Aryans are better and Jews are lower. That's an ontological distinction. It is basically metaphysics.
Yeah.
At that point, it's not. I mean, I suppose it is appealing to some defunct form of social science that's really scientifically ignorant. But at the same time, I don't think they cared about that. I think they just believed it. Whatever.
That was to reinforce the point. They had like a thing they were looking for, and they just found some things to back it up.
Yeah. So there's that ontological distinction, which I think that's basically. It may as well be metaphysics, like in a functional sense. I don't think there's any difference between a regime like that and something like this.
Or like Russia at the moment, it's like a veneration for Putin. It's almost like godlike.
So when I think people say religion, I think really what they mean is just this, which is common across pretty much everything. But they just mean a supernatural version of this.
So do you think that definition holds up as or do you think it's just not complete enough? You think it's an extra step before you can get to what?
I think it's certainly useful. I think religion is hard enough to define. Academics are still working on it now. I think.
God.
Do you think it's just one of those? It's whatever that judge said when he was talking about pornography. Like I know it when I see it. Do you reckon there's that sort of pragmatic step with religion where it's like we kind of can all say religion and we all have an idea in our heads what we mean when we say religion. But at the same time, if we're trying to get into the nitty gritty and the grey areas of it, it actually becomes very difficult to pin down.
I think if I was going to maybe give a definition, I'd say it's something that appeals to a higher sense of power than just ourselves. A transcendent being or set of beings and the rules are infallible, and that the premise of that state of affairs existing is non-negotiable.
Right, but then again, it's like we can then pull that parallel to fascism again.
House music.
I actually, apart from the
apart
supernatural element, I don't actually think there is a difference between regimes. I'm not saying because they're both as horrible as each other. Yeah, but
Richard Dawkins kicks down the door. Religion is just a regime. Like runs out.
But same with a particularly fanatic football club. I think so long as there's that level of dogmatism there, and I don't mean to use dogmatism in a particularly negative light. It's not something I agree with, but I think it's I kind of have this Kierkegaardian view of dogma. I think it's a necessary component of religion. Even if you are religious, you should admit that. I don't think there's any difference between secular and supernatural religions. I think they're both pretty much the same. The only difference being one's secular, one's supernatural.
Okay. So you just think it's the distinction is this secular element. It's this higher metaphysical aspect to it.
The BBC just threw up this was an article I found this morning, and they were looking at the fact that Scientology desperately wants to be recognised as a religion and not a cult.
Tax status.
So they
it's just like
tax. So they threw up this definition, and apparently the source is the Cult Information Centre. So
there's a Cult Information Centre.
Apparently.
That's where my tax dollars are
It's not
going.
going to be inherently biased. Proper cult.
It's run by Tom Cruise and fucking Steven Seagal.
The interesting fact about Tom Cruise is that if you see a picture of him, he's got a tooth,
right in the middle
of his face,
right in the middle,
yeah.
Symmetrical.
And now I can never unsee it.
Once you see it, it's like an actual red pill moment.
Really?
It's like finding God. It's like once you see it, it's just there forever. It's just middle tooth, mate. It's harrowing.
Definition of a cult. So uses psychological. Again, a lot of these can be applied to certain denominations of mainstream religions. I think definitely. But so uses psychological coercion to recruit, indoctrinate, and retain members. So there's that intense socialization of people. Often, like if you look at cults like the Moonies,
Never heard of them.
all right, well they're quite big actually, and they do. I can't remember what the exact term for it is, but they specifically target people that are lonely at events. They don't talk about the Moonies, and then they drop that in after they've made a few friends with lonely
once
people.
they're already in.
Yeah.
To vulnerable people.
Forms an elitist society. I mean, same could be said of Catholicism or something. Founder or leader is, it says founder leader, so I'm guessing a cult has to have that. I don't really think that's true, but is self-appointed, dogmatic, messianic, charismatic, and unaccountable. Believes the end justify the means in terms of raising funds and recruitment, and its wealth does not benefit its members or society. I don't know. I think a lot of that is...
That's difficult because it's like one of the other cult leaders members of the cult, yes, so that they're clearly benefits. That's a little bit of a weird definition at the end there.
Was it just proceeds? Did it say just money?
Wealth does not benefit its members or society. Okay. It's wealth.
So the wealth is just channeled up to a guy who's scamming it all, basically.
But that's the problem. It's like, but the guy who's scamming it, is he a member of the cult, or is he just a puppeteer? He's the puppet master.
He's not outside it, is he?
Yeah, that's what I mean. So I don't know. I don't know about that last definition. Just
I think there's a lot of those things are a bit iffy.
Yeah, there's sort of a strange, and it's like, and also the foundation leader definition where it's like a bit. It's very specific. I don't know.
Yeah, to say it has to have all of those, I think is missing the mark a little bit. And I think probably one of the things they haven't mentioned is the notoriety socially that's involved in running a cult. Like I think most of the legitimacy of what determines whether something's mainstream or not is, the public opinion of it. And so I think to say something's a cult is probably to say that most of society thinks it's bollocks.
Yeah. Or it's recognised, or like you were saying about the porn judge, it's like you look at it and you go, that's a cult, as opposed to religion. There's some sort of vibe that we all get,
There's a sort of
external
external
understanding.
justification for why. Yeah.
The one thing I think that's not mentioned on there that springs to my mind whenever I hear the word cult is that it becomes difficult / dangerous to exit.
Yes.
Once you're in there,
Apostates,
there's a lot of
basically.
pressure, potentially even threats about leaving it. I don't know if that's sort of typically associated with what a cult is, but to me, that's the first thing I would think of.
Yeah, those are very common traits, at least.
I think that can be, because I was speaking to someone at work yesterday, I think, and one of my managers, and they said that they had difficulty in certain members of their family from trying to date other people that were outside of their local church, even. I think this is something that pervades all mainstream religion at times. I think, most mainstream religions do a little bit of propaganda, and the us and them, the polarising of...
I think that's just inevitable. Like, if you have anything, if you have 20 people in a room, eventually you're going to get a couple of groups. You're going to get an in-group and out group.
Us just sat here,
Yeah, already.
Yeah.
Maybe we
Us and them.
formed an anti-Connor alliance.
It's us versus whatever weirdos are listening to this.
Yeah, it's us versus Scientology.
Yeah.
So it's like, watch out, John Travolta, you rapist.
You can dance your way out of this.
I don't know, he's pretty good at dancing.
He's pretty good.
It's like if John Travolta came down and did a dance, we're like, I forgive you everything.
What, even
So
in his
cool.
current, oh god, I don't know if you've seen any pictures of him recently.
I haven't.
He's pretty dripping.
Is he?
Yeah.
I don't know. I know he has.
He's not great.
I know
He's not looking great. I actually don't know.
I know he has planes. He has actual, he has basically a fucking airfield. And he flies like jet planes, like normal tourist planes, and he just has one for himself. That's how much money he has and gets from Scientology. As well as doing
Because
other
he's
films.
fucking level 42 wizard or whatever the fuck it's called.
Grand Thetan, though, yeah.
Yeah. Curveball.
180.
So, Heaven's Gate, one of the rituals was castration.
Fucking hell, really?
Yes, there's this denial of just everything it means to be human. They just fucking hate being human.
Do you think it's just a really, really heightened form of self-hatred? We saw the videos of the people. They're probably not, they're probably
themselves.
Yeah, they're probably not full of
They definitely look
self-confidence.
lost, or at least they look very impressionable, and as if they could. They're the sort of people you can imagine
Guided. They can be guided.
Yeah, they want to
Spiritual
have that big father figure, or that.
It's awesome, and if you just go you need to be castrated, they want to not be themselves enough to be I would rather believe that I'm a soul that can follow a comet than be the person I am now. So it's that sort
in
of
that Heaven's Gate.
preying on people is like you said about the Moonies, what the fuck they were. It's like praying. It's and the Christians and a lot of religions do the same. They knock on doors. And they go hello, oh cool, yeah, you don't have grey hair, bye. And they'll just do that, and they'll just prey on
family member
people.
recently died or something. It's really predatory.
It's actually pretty.
I know the
great.
Mormons came over. When my dad divorced my mum. The Mormons were coming over. They smelt blood in the water. They're like, oh, vulnerable.
With their rice
person.
pudding, like sharks. Yeah.
In first year, I used to walk around a lot in town.
Show off.
Showing what off?
In first year, I used to walk around a lot.
Just to be the man about town.
No, I mean, I used to walk around on my own a lot, and
Ooh, maverick.
And Mormons would
write poetry in a graveyard.
Yeah, and
about the communist uprising.
And Mormon, I'm not a communist. And Mormons would just target me because I looked like a fucking mom. So I think me and Sam, not you, used to go and debate them a lot. So we
I'll know you're hit slapping them.
Yeah, trying to.
But your gods is gay.
Well, they just went.
me.
Well, they were just like, here's a picture of Joseph Smith. and that's what happened.
He dug up tablets in the desert that were written by God that only he could read, and then he destroyed them.
We had all the hit slaps ready, like, so why did he write them in Egyptian? And he goes, yeah, Egyptian. I'm like, no, why did he write them in Egyptian? It's like, what do you mean? Like, well, why weren't they in Hebrew? If they were an extension of the Bible, why would they be in Egyptian? That's weird.
Yeah.
And he was just like, I don't know. It's like, right, you haven't thought about this, have you? And it's like, I don't know. Just
Are they just there for like I think it's just the social aspect. I'm sure a lot of religion is just like the social aspect, and then they're like, oh yeah, it's like how many people go to church and they just 100% don't believe in God. They're just there because it's like, it's nice. It's a community thing.
like a Duke of Edinburgh thing. You have to get a certain amount of hours harassing people in the street.
Yeah, exactly.
I think with these denominations, small minorities, and kind of schisms and things, like Mormonism and Jehovah's Witnesses, I think there's an element of, because they've diverted from the mainstream things like CV or Catholicism because of their beliefs about things like transubstantiation and the fact that there's other prophets and things. So I think belief comes into it with those.
Planet. Mormonism, everyone gets a planet. If you're good enough, you get a planet that you become. If you're not,
No.
what? Yeah. So like, if you're like,
everyone gets their own planet.
Yeah,
I thought everyone just goes to a planet.
no, everyone gets like a planet.
Hell,
So like, if you're really like a
That's
legit
sold me.
Mormon and you get people to like, you get a lot of like, it's like Mormonism's like recruitment. If you get like loads, if you run up those numbers and you put like your fucking numbers at the top of the board, you get your own planet.
Well, what's that thing? Like, I mean, there's a mandatory. Is it a year or 2 years? They have to go out missionaries.
Mission. They got a mission.
Well,
and they have to have an elder with them at all times.
Yeah,
Like,
there's
so
an
crazy.
incredible documentary on it.
I think you
I
should.
think it's called Meet the Mormons.
Yeah.
And it's really worth watching, and it just shows how toxic and just horrible it is to be a Mormon missionary. And they have a quota. They have to convert, I think, 4 people in 2 years. It might be. I think they have to have a period of life that's 2 years, and they can't be unsupervised. This is something that we talked to them about. And we were like, so which one of you is the elder? And they were like, oh, I am. And it's like, right, so can he not go into the other room and talk to us? Or and they're like, no, definitely not. It's like, apparently he can't go swimming on his own. It's like, oh, that's just for safety. It's like, yeah, but
You can't go swimming on his
well,
own.
and they also have to wear special underwear sanctioned by. They can't just wear normal underwear. Like Mormon parties and clubs.
Is it made out of papyrus? Like, what's it?
I don't know.
What is
It's just underwear. But apparently it's just normal. It's just they can't just wear boxers from Primark. They have to wear special Mormon underwear.
This is just like, when you like join something like let's say join a football team and you're like, yeah, you have to buy your own kit though, and these socks you have to wear them and they're £100. They're just selling their own like special Mormon pants.
And they have this awful budget. They can't drink coffee. It's just the worst kind of life.
They seem very happy though.
Yeah, because they got a purpose, but it's made up.
Well, but I mean, how much do you think it's because they're the personality types of the people who get sort of indoctrinated into Mormonism? Let's say that are those kind of people that are a bit just like a bit off.
Well, you got to remember that Missouri and everything, like Mormonism is massive. Like a lot of these people come from those places, and and there's Mormon communities here, literally here as well. There's one down the road. There's also a Christian Science building here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Mary Baker Eddy.
Jesus was a scientist.
Yeah.
What is the deal with that? Because I don't know anything about that. Like, so I just see that and I'm like, what's going on there?
They think that prayer can heal anything.
Right. So is it just like one of those things where they're just trying to sort of mash together science?
It's just faith healing.
Faith.
It's an opposition to science. It's just awful. It's I don't know. I don't know why we treat ideas like that with reverence. It's like if you want to believe in that personally, if you want to believe in nonsense, that's fine. That's your prerogative. But when it comes to public conversation, it's like that's not spirituality. Doesn't add something special in any way to. It's not when you say I went to church the other night or I went to badminton the other night. I don't think there's anything special about the church element necessarily.
But then we could apply like the seven things and probably go. Badminton's actually like a semi-religious activity.
I don't want to sound like some kind of crazy militant secularist, even though I don't think that term makes much sense. But like, let's say you want to go to work and you say, I can't serve somebody meat because I'm Jewish, or whatever. I think if you're a vegetarian and you also have that disagreement, you're in no worse situation. It's something you deeply believe.
Yeah.
I think existentialism and spirituality are the same thing. We just give them different words. So if I had a very deeply held philosophy, I don't know why that should be treated any differently to... I think it's just as rich and just as valid.
Just as equivocal. Although, you might say, well, the distinction there is the number of believers, perhaps.
Yeah, but
whether, like we said about the external validation of cults being based on public opinion, do people also call, well, your beliefs are just your own, as opposed to these beliefs that are held by loads of numbers of people and thus are validated just by public perception.
But then by historical circumstance, millions of things get believed and validated and internally validated constantly, like circumcision. How crazy is that? But lots of cultures do it, so we just carry on doing it. FGM and just those are horrible things.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, circumcision has, like, actual sort of medical benefits, but FGM is just like,
medical benefits. Well, not anymore.
Well, not anymore. It
people have learned to wash under their foreskin, so
there
are still some things, but it's it's at least that you can go, okay, that was kind of like a hygiene thing back in the desert.
Right, back in the day.
FGM is like sewing something up, removing.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
you're like, that's probably, and it's like sometimes you talk to people and they're like. I've talked to people, they generally go, we shouldn't be interfering in the culture. Like, that's literally just mutilation of a child. What the fuck is wrong with you? There's a point where we have to just go
it's cultural relativism gone utterly bonkers.
Yeah, we have to go, that's actually insane, you're mad. Like,
it really starts to come in the dissonance between our sort of ethical conduct as a society and what a lot of these sort of
and cultural practices.
We want everyone to be able to do everything. And be like, we don't want to offend anyone's feelings. We want everyone to be happy and do the things they want.
We need to discuss these ideas. Yeah. As long as we're not saying you can't do that,
But FGM is like, probably can't do that.
We're of course. Yeah, when it comes to ethical things, but even when it comes to cultural practices, I mean, we can all just talk about cultural practices in a nice, constructive way. That's basically what we're doing right now. People don't have to... I mean, we're talking about political correctness now. We've gone way off from UFOs, but...
Yeah. It's because they're boring. We want to talk about Scientology.
Have any of you guys ever seen a UFO?
Yes.
Well, I mean, you see them all the time because you're not capable of identifying the sky.
I don't know the serial number of plane.
Exactly.
So you need Pizz's fucking plane tracker.
So nobody's been abducted, anal probe.
Have you?
I'll tell you what I've seen that
have you been
attributed to lack of sleep, and when I was a kid. It was basically Christmas Eve, right? And I know what you're thinking. You're going to say that I saw Santa's sleigh, and I think that's what I interpreted that as the time. So it was like
you saw Santa.
Woke up in the middle of the night.
It's actually an ELO hit.
Blackout, and it was like you see planes in the sky and there's lights and stuff flashing. So I saw that, but it was like very very close up. And I kid you not, it was going like the motion you would imagine a sleigh to go. And like, my 7-year-old mind was like, I'm going to piece that together, and I think that's probably what it is.
Yeah.
But I never found out what it was. Because I don't think it was a plane. I'm not sure it was.
A really drunk pilot. Just going like constantly up and down.
So to me, that was a UFO. I'm sure there's an explanation, but I never found out what.
Yeah.
That's about it for me.
Have you been probed?
I haven't been probed.
We need to talk about it.
Unfortunately.
Damn it. You've just sat there in the middle of a field with your ass open going, probe me!
So,
we're going to need some editing on this.
Speaking of probing, I've just found something in my notes.
Probing
gonna be good. No, there's a shift in the narrative of abduction stories. So in the 40s, they were given this very negative edge. So people would be like, "Shit, I got abducted. That's bad." But a few years later, couple of decades later, there starts to be a shift into them being. I mean, you could almost run the analogy of spirit journeys.
I was chosen.
Yeah. And it's always like a peaceful thing. They showed me the way of the universe, and they made me a bacon sandwich, and I fucking loved it. I want to go back. But before it was kind of
sweaty probing.
It was a violation, and now it's like it's a bit of grace, from above.
I'm special.
Yeah, and I think that is why a lot of people join these groups, and a lot of people join any group.
Yeah, this is narcissism. I'm special because I'm part of the only people that know the real truth, which is that we're going to tag onto a comet.
So, talking about the legitimacy of these religions, the last part of what I was writing about, did you get that far?
I did. I finished the thing.
Oh, nice.
You're surprised. I just typed into fucking completethissessay.com.
Like, made-up religions, like Jediism. What do we think of that?
Well,
do we think they're legitimate
Well,
religions?
it's satire, aren't they? Like Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. It's satire.
Jediism, I don't think is.
No, it is.
That's the better satire.
I think it's got.
I think it began as
maybe it's
satire.
got out of hand. But
Well, I'm sure there's obviously aberrant folk in Jediism who
Jediism's
actually
just
believe
fucking
it.
Taoism.
I think it has a satirical origin, but I think the point that we can extrapolate from that is just as meaningful as a lot of what religion has to say. So when people do like protest votes, for instance, that's still a valid kind of expression of a political opinion. If they vote Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster or whatever, and Monster Over Looney Pie, sorry, Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster and Pastafarianism and everything, that is a commentary itself on legitimacy and authority.
And I think originally it was a lot sort of part of a debate about like, okay, so if so and so can have religious headdress in in a
I can wear a
photos,
condom.
yeah, well, can I wear a collar, yeah.
It's even if it's wrong, you still have to then go, okay, so why is that wrong? What does this say about political correctness? Where do we draw this line? And it invites that conversation of going, well, what's legitimate and what's not? Can you put a condom on your head? How is that less? How is that less rich?
So
it's like it's still saying something. So and then, like you could say like, okay, well, it's the numbers of people that believe this. So let's say 5,000 people start doing that, which they did with Jediism.
Jediism was like the fourth largest religion in the UK.
Yeah.
So I don't know how
it screwed up one of the
something
censuses.
it was crazy on a census, wasn't it? Because it was just people playing a joke basically. But once it gets on that census, then you have to seriously question. Okay, so how are we actually validating this now?
Yeah.
If we also have numbers now.
Yeah, so that it literally is just the thing about numbers, then, isn't it? It's just how many people are saying Jediism, oh shit, it's enough that we have to be like, we have to pretend to treat this as a religion now. We all, maybe the people behind Jediism took it a bit more seriously when they realised they actually have a bit more following. Just like 4 or 5 people on a flat going, we'll tell them we're fucking Jedis.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure Church of the Flying Spaghetti, that was an Australian thing, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Originally? Yeah, of course. Of course it was.
But the thing with, Star Wars itself has this massive community of people just waving lightsabers around. There is a massive.
There's a culture.
It's a subculture. Yeah, definitely, most definitely. Someone Tiara is an academic that wrote on the fact that these religions should be called fiction-based rather than invented, to distinguish them from just utter nonsense. Things like Jediism, because they actually contribute to the wider conversation.
But then L. Ron Hubbard was a fiction writer.
Yeah.
And one of the most, has published probably, I think he has the Guinness World Records of most published works of fiction ever.
Awesome.
Which is kind of,
I like this. L. Ron Hubbard's been doing bits.
Just throwing books out there.
Fuck you, Stephen.
Churning them out, yeah. Wow.
Where he just has like Scientology slaves chained to like typewriters, just like.
Yeah, all that. But yeah, I've got to open the question. Like, what do you think about the whole Scientology trying to now be a legitimate religion?
We got that.
As opposed to a cult, which it is.
Like we said, there's not much difference. I think we can still distinguish between good and bad religions and secular and spiritual religions. So I don't think we really need to throw the term cult out there. Although cult does help, to be honest.
Do you think that actual religions should even have certain forms of status, as far as like the law is concerned and tax is concerned? Not
at all, because I think
that definitely not tax. The amount of money amount of property that the church owns, the Scientology owns, is like in America is like one of the biggest owners of property.
Huge.
But I don't think there's any substance to religion that isn't already there in secular philosophy. If you're going to do, things are just as meaningful without the spiritual element. Yeah. So you don't add anything special onto a statement by putting God in front of it, unless you can prove that God exists, but you can't. So basically you're just saying that you happen to feel very strongly about something, which is fine, as long as it's not harmful. But
do you think that tradition is an important part in this? Like the fact of something having been more...
Sure, but I think many traditions are secular anyway.
Live longer.
Yeah, I think I do. Yeah, of course, especially in Christianity, in the UK, I won't deny it. Christianity has a very strong cultural influence, but I don't think that exempts it from discussion and criticism, and I don't think it gives it any more special status. I think, in fact, the more cultural influence something has, I think the more we should talk about it.
I think it's just a bit outdated. It's just like churches had tax exempt status back in the day, and they just haven't got around to going, oh, we should probably start.
Well, we're still
we should
not
probably
secular.
bring this back.
It's not a secular country yet, I think.
It's weird because our population is, but our state isn't, and it's the opposite to America. It's the opposite effect. Yeah,
it's just weird that I think they should just get rid of the whole tax exempt thing off religion in general.
We tend to lump religion in with things like sex and race, and it's like you choose your religion.
Yeah.
Unless you're Jewish, in which case it's.
You choose your sex, Connor. What do you mean?
Judaism, huh?
What do you mean? You choose your sex.
You choose your gender. You don't choose your sex.
I'm a one sex.
You don't choose it. You are it. If you ask any transgender person, they say, "Well, no, I am this."
Oh yeah.
You know.
I guess.
You don't just go, "Oh, I'll wake up as a woman tomorrow." Well, I mean, I'm sure someone has before, but like that's not the transgender argument.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Yeah.
But yeah, with religion, I mean, it's a choice. It's a lifestyle choice. It's not when you say, "Oh, I don't want to. I want my cow slit its throat." Hello.
This is dark energy coming from you, Connor.
It's like, well, why? Oh, because I believe something. Well, the cow doesn't. So, what are you talking about? You know what I mean?
Yeah, why should the cow suffer because of your beliefs?
You believe in something you can't prove. That's fine. All more power to you. You can sit at home and believe that. That's fine. You could bring its influence into wider society as long as you don't force it. But the cow doesn't believe that, so it's like the cow is not. You know. Anyway, thetans.
Yeah.
Yeah, so does anyone actually know what's going on with Scientology? Like the details of what the UFO-iness
Not even
in
they know,
Scientology?
mate.
No,
because level 49 thetans, you buy books and they scam you until you become level something, and then you transcend to another planet.
Well, it's like we're all like the descendants of people who got thrown in a volcano, and then that boiled them down and created souls that flew into our bodies.
We saw the John Travolta movie about it, didn't we? That he sunk all his money into
Battlefield Earth.
Yeah,
the documentary.
with its Dutch angles and stuff.
Yeah, dude.
So, but I mean, like, do you know actually like what's supposed to happen? So when you're a super thetan, so what happens? And are you connected?
So we should probably break this down a little bit more. So
I think you just get that truth revealed to you that we're all like souls that have come. There was like a big war between two warlords, and then there was
alien warlords,
yeah, of course, alien warlords,
yeah.
not normal warlords, not fucking Captain Mosquito or what his name is.
So what is it? So our souls are alien souls.
I think our
we used to right. So something like we used to be alien. There was some super race of aliens, and like humanity are. I don't know what our relationship with humanity is, but basically, if we have a high enough thetan level, I think that means that you become more closer to becoming one of these alien things, or transferring your soul into one of these alien things, or seeing parts of that world. It's something like that, where it's like you become closer with these alien beings of some sort.
Can we just do a pause? We'll edit all this out.
Well, hang on.
We'll find out what Scientology.
You go up levels, don't you?
Yeah.
And so there's this coveted revelation. So
it's like a freemium pay to win game. It's like you just pay to get up the levels.
Yeah.
So it's like you go, and you get like drip fed knowledge, and then when you get to level 49, you get told about the galactic war and how all of our souls were put into bodies after the aliens used that as a way to escape by throwing themselves into a volcano.
Considering L. Ron Hubbard is dead, technically it doesn't fit the exact definition of a cult because its leader is no longer alive. Its founder is no longer.
So
that's only according to like the really ropey guidelines published by like some fucking.
Yeah. It was an archived BBC
fucking
article.
Intern at the fucking BBC. She went, "Oh shit! I need 20 words on a cult." It went, "Yeah, it's got to be."
I'm sure what they would probably say is, well, there's other leaders now that fill that definition or something. You know.
Is it if you have like a leader / whatever?
I mean, I don't know who. I'm guessing there is a single leader at the moment.
Yeah, I can't remember his name though. It's,
well, I guess it just takes the same. I mean, in Islam, Muhammad is dead, but then the word of the prophet isn't. So it continues. And that's what the whole
Sunni
Shia split is all about. The 12ers and everything. It's like,
what is the Sunni Shia split? I literally don't know about that.
It's to do with the succession of Muhammad and basically where the lineage.
Yes, so that's how you get the distinction between Sunnis and Shiites.
So there's like a family tree split.
Especially, who is the most legitimate, closest thing to the Prophet? Is it like, to do with like his disciples, essentially? Is it like the disciples who hold them more? Or is it like to do with like trying to trace direct family members? Or is it like disciples? And there's like different claims to who is the original, who is like now the closest to the original Prophet Muhammad, and that sort of thing. And that's how you sort of get different. It is a mess, and I don't know enough about it to be able to give a detailed explanation of.
I studied it for about 6 months, and it was incredibly confusing, to be honest. But it's confusing enough just trying to track, because obviously there's the Hadith, which is everything he said, and he would have had to have lived to about 200 and never stopped talking. It's the same with the Buddha, like all these quotes going around about the Buddha, and he's supposed to have said like all these different things. No, he didn't say it. Half of that shit.
People went, oh, this is a cool thing. We'll say the big guy said it back and they attribute it backwards.
Some Islamic feminists have actually pointed out that the Hadith contains just a lot of stuff from his friends that they made up into certain versions of the Hadith.
Like the different versions of the Bible and like the interpretations of that.
Yeah, so it's like I'm sure some of it's legitimate that he actually said. Of course it is, but it's kind of coming from where that is. But most Muslims don't have any problem with the authenticity of the Quran, but then the Hadith is secondary literature. Really, we don't really have that in Christianity, so we don't really have a second source of authority. So it's like it adds up a whole new dynamic, really, with where they get their authority from and revelation. Because it's basically revelation. It's not supposed to be on paper, but it ends up being something that ordinary Muslims quote to each other all the time. The Hadith, just little snappy like.
It's part like it's like like almost the way we all use like film references or something like that. It's like is it like that?
Yeah, well, there's like a little one of them I remember is like something like a man who follows a woman's advice is an idiot, and it's like
Muhammad 2K12,
and it's like this is one of the ones that she points out that's not what Muhammad said, that's what someone else said and then wrote it in, and there's so many different versions of Hadith. Authenticity is
it's just sort of gerrymandering depending on who wants their definition to be.
But then the Quran is supposed to be word for word exactly the word of God through. Muhammad's basically a conduit when he wrote that, which is
I suppose the Quran is more like interpretable and sort of a bit more difficult to understand, the precise meaning of what any particular part of it sort of says. You sort of open it, just like
it's written in prose, which does make it harder. But I don't think it's necessarily more difficult than the Bible. The Bible
in itself is, there's enough controversy over like trying to translations and trying to figure out what the true meaning of this phrase is or what.
It has more rigidity in terms of its authority than the Bible within its religion. The Bible is parts of it are metaphor, parts of it are prose, and they're not just like Noah's Ark is symbolic, but there's not that much in the Quran that's symbolic. It's more literal, and it's also this idea that a lot of Islamic theologians have struggled with, this idea that God is eternal, but then he reveals his work later, and it's like there's conversations as well when some of the prophets kind of change God's mind about things. It's like, well, how is that happening if he's eternal and immutable? And so theologians, it's interesting to see the responses, how they get around these problems. It's quite a good book to read, to be honest. It's as interesting as the Bible.
Yeah. I'll put it on there. It's like
put on the reading
Rich and Judy's fucking book club. 4 stars. The Quran.
I think everyone should give it a little read. It might make us kind of get more to grips with Islam. I don't think people like talking about Islam and Islamic art and.
Well, I don't know. Islamic art is like the fucking craziest thing ever. Their style of art and.
Well, same with Judaism. Did you just kill a bee?
Yeah, it's a wasp, and I mashed it into a carpet a little bit. Sorry.
You're
single-handedly responsible for the loss of honeybees now, even though you killed a wasp.
Well done, Joe.
How does that work?
Well done.
It's just the law of Scientology.
Thermodynamics.